Okay. Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. The day and the evening are getting longer and longer, and we are hungry and
I
tired.
ate. I'm fine.
Okay, so let's start with the first poetry night readings and discussions. On my left side is Paula Erizanu. We will start. Then you see Iya Kiva and Vasyl Makhno. Welcome here, and let's have a nice evening with your poems. And so we'll start, as I promised, with Paula Erizanu. Paula Erizanu was born in 1992 in Kishinau, Moldova. After completing her bachelor's degree in English, in history with English and history of art at the New College of the Humanities in London, and her master's in magazine journalism at City University London, she worked as a journalist in London. Specializing in politics and culture in Eastern Europe, she was the culture editor of the Calvert Journal between 2019 and 2022. Her work has been also appeared in The Guardian, BBC, Financial Times, and a lot of other English reviews and publications. Her first book, This Is My First Revolution, Steal It, was published in 2010, is a non-fiction account of the Moldova mass protests in April 2009, which received several prizes, including UNESCO's World's Most Beautiful Production at Leipzig. I didn't know that this prize is dedicated, is given in Leipzig.
Yeah, they make the selection in Frankfurt, and then they give the prize in Leipzig.
Oh yeah, okay. Her debut novel, The Woods Are Burning, this is the book
you received. Yeah, you have in your pocket.
Today. A fictionalized history account of the lives of early Soviet feminists Alexandra Kollontai and Inesa Armand was published in Romanian in 2021. The book won also a lot of prizes, but it is the first volume of two. Bigger project of two, and you're working on the second book, is not published yet. And you are the co-editor of an anthology of women-written poetry in Romanian. And this is what I wanted to ask you first. How started this project?
Yeah.
What was your decision to do it?
So the idea to recover women writers' voices came to my co-editor, Alina Porcaru. He's a poet and a literary critic. And we were celebrating the centenary of Romania in 2018. And we just thought, why wouldn't we do a project that kind of comes out of that to celebrate women poets? But at the beginning, we thought that we would just do one volume because we didn't realize that there are so many women writers actually who have written in Romanian over the past 100 years. This was the prejudice. A lot of people that we were talking to at that time were saying, oh, you're not going to find anyone, you know, half of the poetry you're going to publish is going to be bad. There are no female poets in Romanian literature until 1990 or something ridiculous like that. It was just bland statements that were not founded on any kind of concrete evidence. And we started writing the list. We started from contemporary poets because it's easier. We know each other. They're still alive. They can still promote their work.
You didn't start historically.
Yeah, so we started from the present and went back into the past.
Okay.
And then as we wrote down a list of the writers we knew, we realized there's no way that we can fill all of that information in just one volume. So we decided to separate it into 3 volumes, and we managed to find almost 100 women poets who have written over the past 100 years in Romanian language, and they have done so. They have done it excellently. We didn't include poets that we thought were bad because that would have undermined our project. And now no one is able to say anymore that there are no female poets in Romanian literature. We have the exact concrete proof of that, these 3 volumes, which have been really well received, and which were part of a kind of feminist wave that has been more kind of dynamic in the past 5 years since we started the project. The poet Elena Vladaranu also launched the Sofia Nadezhde Prize, Women's Writing Prize, which was very visible. And there were other initiatives at the same time which celebrated women's writing. So now I think women's writing is having a better moment, for sure, than it did 5 years ago. Although I was just talking to a cultural journalist today who said, well, we still need to recover the prose writers, the post-war female prose writers. So there's still more work to do.
But today, you know who was the first woman publishing poetry in Romania, in Romanian literature?
Ooh, that's a good question. We didn't go back to the origins, because there are still female poets who wrote further than 100 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
So even, Veronica Micle famously, and others. But so yeah, I wouldn't be able to answer your question now, but I will start doing some research. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's hear your poem. You read in Romanian and in English.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Acrobații. Sunt la vârsta primelor compromisuri, nici nu am nevoie să caut justificări. Le găsesc ușor, ca pe sticla de lapte din frigider. Un om e mai cald decât o idee, îmi spun. Cum îți vei așterne, așa vei cădea de pe frânghia pe care încerci să-ți menții echilibrul sau chiar să faci acrobații. Dar știi, artiștii de circ au dureri cronice. Adevărul nu va fi niciodată doar de partea ta. Frumusețea se va ivi în ochii celor care privesc, de binele tău o să le fie altora greață. Orice ai zice, opusul e valabil și el, dar nu întru totul, nu în orice caz. Ala bala portocala, hai în joc, nu te feri. The translation is acrobatics. I'm at the age of the first compromises. I don't even need to look for excuses. I find them easily, like the milk bottle in the fridge. A human being is warmer than an idea, I tell myself. The way you lay your bed is the way you'll fall off the rope on which you're trying to keep your balance or even do acrobatics. But circus artists are under chronic pain. The truth will never be only on your side. Beauty will reveal itself in the eyes of the beholders. What you think is good will make others sick. Anything you say, whatever you say, the opposite also holds. But not altogether, not in any case. Ala bala portocala, come and play, don't run away. Frumoșii nebuni ai marilor orașe. This is a series of poems that isn't published yet. It's called Poetry for Mental Hygiene. And yeah, it's from stages in my life when I had full-time work and struggled with mental health. La câți pași crezi că ești de oamenii care vorbesc cu duhuri înjurându-le, strigând la ele pe stradă? La câți pași crezi că ești de nebunie? Într-un documentar bosniac, un om care a surzit în război și a pierdut ochiul de la un accelerator și a plecat să trăiască singur pe o insulă, pe un lac, să doarmă sub o biserică, să mângâie cai sălbatici și un câine. În oraș nu rezist, nu sunt sănătos, mă înfurii aici, Sunt liniștit, repeta. De când m-am transformat într-o fabrică, de când produc, caut luna, caut apa, caut poveștile care îmi liniștesc vocile astea care îmi ies pe gură, un pic mai încet decât demonii de la slujba Sfântului Vasile, suficient de încet ca lumea să mă creadă sănătoasă. Apoi îmi imaginez colega mea de apartament, stropindu-mi apă în cap cu grija și regularitatea cu care își stropește roșiile din grădină. Și tac. The beautiful, mad people of the big cities. How many steps away do you think you are from the people who speak to spirits, swearing, shouting at them on the streets? How many steps away do you think you are from madness? In a Bosnian documentary, a man who went deaf during the war, who lost his eye from an accelerator, fled to live alone on an island on a lake, sleep under a church, and stroke wild horses and a dog. In the city, I cannot go on. I'm not healthy. I get angry. Here, I feel at peace, he kept repeating. Since I turned into a factory producing, I look for the moon, I look for water, I look for stories that give me peace, the voices that come out of my mouth, a little quieter than demons, sufficiently quiet so that the world will think I'm healthy. Then I imagine my housemate watering my head with the care and regular rhythm with which she waters her tomatoes in the garden. And I turn quiet. Tot mai multe mențiuni despre sănătate mentală pe Facebook, diagnoze împărtășite cu alții, dar într-un mic oraș e o femeie care își adună oameni în jur și împreună bolborosesc. Nu puneți etichete pe oameni. Dacă au probleme cu plata ipotecară, dați-le un consultant pe ipoteci. Dacă nu își pot achita facturile, dați-le locuri de muncă. Dacă au relații complicate cu cei de alături, ajutați-i să se găsească unii pe alții sau să se pună pe fugă. There are more and more mentions about mental health on Facebook, diagnoses shared with others, but in a small town, there is a woman gathering people around her, and together they whisper. Don't put labels on people. If they have an issue with paying their mortgage, get them a mortgage consultant. If they can't pay their bills, give them jobs. If they have difficult relationships, introduce them to new people or help them run away. Poem pandemic. Cine nu e mângâiat? Aș putea scrie despre dragoste, despre liniștea pe care mi-o aduce căldura câinelui care doarme în brațele mele, despre liniștea lui sau despre visele din care latră și scâncește pe două voci. Oare ce viață a avut înainte? Aș putea scrie despre fragilitate, despre durerea pe care și-o amintește sângele din corpul unui om drag, sau despre mesajele din noapte, du-te să verifici dacă mai respiră. Aș putea scrie despre dealul traversat de o turmă de oi cu tălânci, despre cum zăpada l-ascunde pe toate în splendoare. Aș putea scrie despre granițele prieteniilor, despre lipsa de sens a marilor orașe când totul e închis și nu rămâne decât iarbă și ciment, despre cuib, despre casă, despre oamenii cu care vrei să rămâi până la capăt, chiar dacă știi că sfârșiturile vă vor sfâșia. Dar să nu mai scriu despre mine și despre cei la care țin sau pe care îi mângâi. Să scriu despre cei despre care nu prea se scrie. Să scriu povești pe care nu le știți, să scriu de pildă despre femeile și bărbații de servici. Despre A, care ziua strânge după bolnavi îmbrăcată în scafandru, iar seara merge îmbrobodită în singurul microbuz care o poate aduce acasă în satul ei, unde pandemia e o boală de oraș sau nu e deloc. Despre A, un soldat întors din război într-o lume veche care nu-l înțelege. Să scriu despre B, de pildă, a cărei fiică de peste mări și țări s-a născut cu o gaură în inimă. Și totuși a reușit și ea să nască la rândul ei o fiică cu o inimă întreagă. Să scriu de pildă despre S, care și-a pierdut tot sângele când a dat naștere și a câștigat sânge nou și probleme de ficat, de inimă, de pancreas, de plămâni din sângele lor. Să scriu de pildă despre femeia cu darul de a învăța copii, care azi șterge podeaua dintr-o țară străină. Sau despre bărbatul nefericit care, în timp ce pune vase la spălat, își trăiește visul în căști, un curs de antreprenoriat pe care îl ascultă pentru el, pentru ai lui, care sunt atât de departe. În țările bogate există și bărbați de servici, de obicei veniți de la mii de kilometri distanță. Să scriu despre oamenii de care puțin dintre noi se apropie, dar dacă ei n-ar fi, nu v-aș povesti, iar lumea ar fi mai murdară. Ei sunt zăpada, ei sunt clorul. Sau ce să scriu ca să îți fiu aproape, să vezi, să asculți, să mângâi. Pandemic poem, whoever is not caressed. I could be writing about love, about the peace brought by the warmth of the dog sleeping in my arms, about his peace, or about the dreams in which he's barking and whining on two voices. What kind of life has he had before us, I wonder. I could be writing about fragility, about the pain remembered by the blood of the body of someone dear to me, or about the nighttime messages, go check if he's still breathing. I could be writing about the hill crossed by a sheep flock with bells, about how the snow hides everything in splendor. I could be writing about the boundaries of friendships, about the meaninglessness of big cities when everything's shut and there's nothing but grass and cement. I could be writing about nesting, about home, about the people you'd like to stay with till the very end, even if you know that the ends will tear you apart. But what if I don't write about myself or about those I care about, those I caress? What if I write about the people few write about? What if I write stories you don't know, right? For instance, about cleaners, about A, who during the day looks after the sick, all covered in protection equipment, and in the evening folds a scarf around her head and takes the way back home to her village where the pandemic is a city illness or does not exist at all. About A soldier returned from the war in an old world that does not get him. Let me write about B, for example, whose daughter, living over the other side of the ocean, was born with a hole in her heart, and still she managed to give birth in her turn to a daughter with a whole heart. Let me write about S, for instance, who lost all her blood when she gave birth and got new blood and liver, heart, pancreas, lung problems from their blood. Let me write about the woman with a gift for teaching children who today washes floors in a foreign country, or about the unhappy man who, while placing the dishes in the dishwasher, is living the dream in his headphones, an entrepreneurship course that he listens to for himself, for his family, in a different side of the continent. In wealthy countries, there are male cleaners too, who usually come from thousands of kilometers away. Let me write about people that few of you get close to, but if it hadn't been for them, I wouldn't tell you the tale, and the world would be dirtier. They are the snow. They are the chlorine. Oh, what shall I write so that I'm close to you, so that you see, you listen, you caress? Despre inocență. Băiatul acela mă cheamă să ne uităm la stele, într-o parte departe de foc. Eu zic nu, el își reia invitația cu ochii lui mari, strălucitori, care văd atâta cer și atâta nisip, dar n-au ajuns în orașele din care venim noi. El n-a învățat să construiască ziduri încă între el și ceilalți, n-a învățat să ascundă. Curiozitatea și emoția lui de copil mă țintesc drept în inimă, dar inima lui curată a crescut între bărbați în care nu am încredere, între femei pe care nu le văd. Inima lui curată ar putea crede că ce fac ei e ok. Mi-e frică de ei, stau la foc și mă duc la culcare, chiar dacă nu mi-e somn, chiar dacă m-aș uita la stele. A poem about innocence. This young boy asks if I want to look at the stars with him, somewhere further away from the fire. I say no. He asks again, with his big gleaming eyes that see so much sand and so much sky, but haven't reached the cities we've come from. He hasn't yet learned how to build walls between him and the others. He hasn't yet learned how to hide. His curiosity and childlike emotion pierce through my heart. But I say no. His clear heart has grown among men I don't trust. His clear heart might believe that what they do is okay. I'm scared of them, so I stay by the fire and then go to bed, even if I'm not sleepy, even if I'd like to look at the stars. Între ea și el, gașca lui comentează ca la un meci de fotbal. Între ea și el, risc mărit de depresie, 23% conform ultimelor cercetări despre contraceptive. Înghite seară de seară, la aceeași oră. Între el și el, mușchii și tata. Între ea și ea, Dumnezeu și bunicii de mână așteptând strănepoți. Între timp, șoptește rugăciunea lui Mary Oliver. Nu trebuie să fii bun, nu trebuie să mergi în genunchi prin deșert 100 de mile pocăindu-te. Trebuie doar să îți lași animalul moale din trupul tău, să iubească ce iubește. In between her and him, his crew comment as if it's a football match. In between her and him, a heightened risk of depression, 23% according to the latest research on contraceptives. Swallow every evening at the same time. In between him and him, the muscles, the father. In between her and her, God and the grandparents, hand in hand, waiting for grandchildren. Meanwhile, whisper Mary Oliver's prayer. You don't have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles throughout the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Ca să fac cumva tranziția pentru la următoarea parte a evenimentului, just so that I make the transition to my colleagues, I'll read a poem that I wrote at the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine when I was in London. My grandma woke up to the sounds of the shelling that she was hearing from Ukraine and Moldova. Frica de război. Stai acolo unde nu depinzi de Odesa, care depinde la rândul ei de Mykolaiv. Acolo unde oamenii încă se plimbă printre pomi înfloriți, unde știrile groaznice sunt doar la TV, la radio, pe feed, iar pe stradă e liniște, acolo unde nu te trezești în mijlocul nopții de la zgomotul exploziilor din țara vecină, acolo unde nu vezi cerul portocaliu de rachete. Stai acolo, departe de noi. The fear of war. You stay there where you don't depend on Odesa, which depends in its turn on Mykolaiv, there where people still stroll by trees in blossom, where they come across terrible news only on TV, on the radio, or in their feeds, while on the streets it's still quiet. There where you don't wake up from the explosions in the neighboring country, there where you don't see the sky, orange from missiles, stay there, far away from us. I returned back to Moldova after I wrote this poem. Merci.
Thank you very much. So you made a connection. Iya Kiva is born in Donetsk, and I see she's based in Lviv. You live in Lviv. When did you leave Donetsk?
From Lviv, it's end of June of 2014.
2014.
Yes.
Yeah. Iya Kiva, is the author of three poetry collections and one book of interviews with Belarusian writers about protests of 2020 and 2021 years. She's the author of the poetry collections Further from Heaven, published in 2018, The First Page of Winter, published in 2019, and Laughter on the Extinguished Fire, 2023. And also, she published a book of interviews with Belarusian authors with the title We'll Wake Up Different, Conversations with Contemporary Belarusian Writers on Past, Present, and Future of Belarus in 2021, dedicated to these protests in 2021. And she's also translator from Polish and Belarusian language into Ukrainian. And please read your poems.
Without question, because I'm waiting for questions.
It was a little question, but in the beginning, and we will discuss after the readings in all together.
I apologize if you will not understand my accent in English, but I will try to do my best.
We all have an accent.
Я хотіла б тобі сказати, що земля тут ані трошечки не змінилася. Але це буде неправда. Це буде жорстка даремна брехня, якою притрушують цупку дитячу цікавість. Дерева тут лише удають дерева тут не вдаються, піднімаючи гілля угору, немовби здаються в полон своїм і чужим, і цьому сучому часу, де з пуп'янків відразу ж народжуються сірники. А річка життя так добре горить, палає від сорому, що пересохла, що не здатна більше наповнити. Літо джмелиним сміхом, а зиму медом турботи. Земля тут за рік так постаріла, що там, де століттями бачили гладке личко води, тепер самі зморшки завглившки в долоню. Або ви гірше, так, наче сонце, світить тепер вниз головою, але хто тепер дивиться вгору? Небо тут таке тихе, що кинь у нього ножем, не ворухнеться, стерпить і це, ковтаючи мовчки, кинджал за кинджалом, роздираючи щоки до крові, як розривають на шмати одежу, що більше не захищає. Око лихе, знаєш, обмацує тебе зсередини, мов хтиві руки у натовпі, спокійно, без сорому, з відчуттям повільного злочину, аж до самого серця, і те зупиняється, а ти живеш далі, але тихо, без серця, без сподівань, як пощастить. Ось і земля тут тепер без серця, наче ґрунт у музеї. Лежить у всіх на очах, напівжива, непритомна, бо не встигнеш повітря ковтнути, а воно вже отруєне, дряпається, гарчить, ніби конає старенький собака. І так все це знаєш вигадливо, що всі вже навчилися робити вигляд, наче не чують власного ж розкладання. А смердить тепер так, що тільки за смородом своїх і впізнаєш. Таких гордих, таких принишклих, таких безжально красивих. Смерть, знаєш, завжди додає краси, аж до судомного реготу. Хіба ж це не смішно? Все життя ходити тією самою стежкою і розминутись з собою на першому ж перехресті. Хіба так буває? Хіба цій землі не набридло водити по колу з пов'язкою на очах, мов у грів панаса? Гей ти, нумо, вгадай, де впадеш і не підведешся. Стільки тут добрих людей, знаєш, а всі лежать у багнюці, покотом розкинувши руки, без голів, як прийдеться. Ця земля, наче шрам на обличчі, бачать усі, але спитати, що ж врешті сталося, бракує відваги. Життя, знаєш, занадто коротке, щоб вдивлятися в землю, особливо в чужу. Щось в цьому є від перелюбу. Так, ніби любов раптом стала штучною мовою, яку ми вчимо і вчимо і вчимо, тільки без сенсу. Я хотіла тобі сказати, що земля ця поезія. Ти ж знаєш не гірше за мене, скільки в поезії читачів. I'd like to tell you that the land here has not changed one bit, but that would be untrue. The kind of cruel and futile lie that is sprinkled to soothe a child's eager curiosity. The trees here only pretend to be trees. The trees here fail, lifting out their branches of yielding themselves prisoners in surrender to their own tribe, to strangers and to this beach of an era. Their matches are born straight from the buds, and the river of life burns so well, burning with shame, that it had dried up, unable anymore to fill the summer with bumblebee laughter and the winter with the honey of care. The land here has aged so much in 1 year that where for centuries they saw the smooth pretty face of water, now the wrinkles are palm deep, and it sometimes gets even worse, yes, if the sun now were shining upside down, but who looks up these days anyway? The sky here is so quiet, throw a knife at it and it won't flinch. It will endure this too, silently, swallowing dagger after dagger, tearing cheeks to blood as they tear to shreds clothes that no longer protect. Evil eye, you know, it grabs you from within, like lusty hands in crowd, calmly, shamelessly, with the feel of unhurried crime, to the very heart, and the heart stops while you live on. But quietly, without a heart, without hope at God's mercy, and so the land here, heartless now, like so in a museum, lies half alive and unconscious before everyone's eyes. You barely have time to take in a gulp of air, and it's already poisoned, scratching, growling like an old dog that is dying. And all of this is so, you know, fanciful that everyone has learned to pretend as that they can't smell their own decomposition. It stinks so badly now that you only recognize your arm by their stench. They're so proud, so subdued, so mercilessly beautiful. That's, you know, always at beauty, even to the point of convulsive laughter. Isn't it funny to walk the shame path all your life, only to miss oneself at the very first intersection? How could this be real? Isn't this sick of going around in circles, blindfolded eyes, as in a game of a blind man's buff? Hey you, come on, get where you fall and not get up. So many good people here, you know, and they all lie in the mire, in heaps, unspread, headless, as the case may be. This land is like a facial scar. Everyone sees, but the courage is lacking to ask what has actually happened. Life is too short, you know, to gaze point blank at a land, especially someone else. There's a kind of adultery to it, as if love had suddenly become an artificial language that we study and studied endlessly, only without meaning. I wanted to tell you that this land is poetry, and you know no worse than I how many readers poetry has. Раз полишивши дім, не зупинитись в дорозі, не сказати ніколи вже, кидайте речі, ось ми прийшли. Адже кроки – єдина колиска, яку ти носиш на спині, не маючи права упасти, спинитись, зробити коло, дихання мертвих дерев, переспівати тремтінням зап'ястків. Раз, полишивши дім, не сховатись більше від цегли між пальців, з якої будуєш гирло печалі, печатку її накладаючи на фарбу і віск. Часу, що лущиться, наче горіх з чорним серцем, і під шкіру в'їдається, як сонця, шершавий язик, раз полишивши дім, не відшукати слів для любові, до місця, в якому впадеш, у дитинство глухий коридор, де речі ще виглядають тебе до гри, яка тоне під кригою щастя, яке потемніло давно, мов бабусин перстень на пальці, і стало важким, як родинний альбом на цвинтарі пам'яті. Раз, полишивши дім, не зазирнути вже у вікно, за яким на тебе чекають розквітлі троянди життя. Бо твій сад відпливає разом з тобою, і вода. Чуєш, вода забирає в обійми тіло твоє, сповнене спрагою моря, що як свободу не перейти. Once you've left your home, you can never stop on the road, never say again, put down your baggage, we have arrived. Because footsteps are the only cradle you carry on your back, without the right to fall, to pause, to circle back, to sing the trembling wrist, echoing the tremors of the trees. Once you've left your home, never hide between fingers from the bricks from which you built up the shroud of sorrow, pressing its seal onto the paint and wax of time, which crumbles like a nut with a black heart, embedding itself under the skin like the sun's scratchy tongue. Once you've left your home, words cannot be found for the love of a place where you relapse into the silent corridor of childhood. There things eye you before again that sings through the eyes of bliss that darkened long ago, like the grandmother's ring on your finger, and grew as heavy as a family album in the memory cemetery. Once you've left your home, you can't gaze into the window anymore, behind which the roses of a life in full bloom await you, because your garden has drifted away with you and water. Can you hear water is enveloping your body, filled with the thirst of a sea that, like freedom, is impossible to cross? Чи є в нас в Україні гаряча війна? Чи є в нас в Україні холодна війна? Як не вже зовсім немає війни, обіцяли ж, що буде після обіду. На власні очі бачили оголошення. Війна з'явиться після 14:00. І ось уже 3 години без війни, 6 годин без війни, що як війни не буде аж до самого вечора. Ні випрати без війни, ні їсти зробити, чистого чаю без війни не напитись. І ось уже 8 днів без війни від нас запах недобрий. Дружини не бажають лягати з нами у ліжка. Діти забули, як усміхатися і ремствують. Чому ми завжди думали, що війна ніколи не скінчиться? Нумо ж бо, нумо ходити по війну до сусідів, по тобік нашого зеленого парку, боятись розплескати війну по дорозі, вважати життя без війни тимчасовими труднощами. В тутешніх краях вважається неприродним, якщо війна не тече по трубах, у кожен дім, у кожну горлянку. Is a hot war in the tap? Is a cold war in the tap? How is that there's absolutely no war? It was promised for after lunch. We saw the announcement with our own eyes. War will arrive at 1400 hours. And it's already 3 hours without war, 6 hours without war. What is if there's no war by the time night falls? We can't do laundry without war, can't make dinner, can't direct a plane without war. And it's already 8 days without war. We smell bad. Our wives don't want to lie in bed with us. The children have forgotten to smile and complain. Why did we always think we'd never run out of war? Let's start visiting neighbors to borrow war on the other side of our green park. Start fearing to spill war in the road. Start considering life without war a temporary hardship. in his paths, it considered unnatural. Evil doesn't course through the pipes, into every house, into every throat. Так десь поміж ребрами раптом з'являється вістря. Загострений промінь жовтя стає катівним знаряддям надії, поки ліси закривають нам очі листям завмерлим. Час – це дитина, яку ми носимо за плечима, немов би грудки землі, до яких любов прив'язана мотузками, щоби в дорозі до річки сіль на щоках не згубити. Однак слова колискової, що її бабуся співала після війни, ми забули. Крізь белькотіння крові у горлі чуємо власний голос, немов би репіння дверей, які нам вибили з пам'яті разом з порожнім містом довіри. Так дивно розносити квіти слів між небіжчиків, немов би дешеві товари на приміському вокзалі, яких ніхто не купує, але хтось же має доглянути сад наших печалей, що ростуть тепер скрізь, мов лабузя, хтось же має тепер, немов той собака в човні, перейти поле надламаних соняхів, щоб запалити вогник життя між деревами ночі, неспокоєм, забуттям, щоб згодом назвати це місце перелітною птахою дому, щоб записати ненависті бруд, не впущу собі навіть під нігті, хоч би як довгі тіні цих днів в'їлись у шкіру буття, у щоденнику, який не збережеться при переїздах. Somewhere between the ribs a spike appears, a pointed ray of October turns into 32 of hope, while forests are closing our eyes with the dead leaves. Time is a child we carry around on our backs, like clods of earth to which we tie our love with ropes, to retain the salt on our cheeks on the way to the river. But the lines of the lullaby that Grandma sang after the war are forgotten. Through the sputtering of blood in the throat, we hear our own voice like the creak of the door, broken out from our memory along with the empty city of trust. How strange it is to carry flowers among the dead people, like the cheap stuff at the local train station, that no one wants to buy. Yet someone has to take care of the garden of our sorrows, that are grown everywhere like the wheat. Yet someone has, like the dog in the boat, to cross the field of the half-broken sunflowers in order to light the tiny flame of fire between the trees of night and the anise of Olivian, to call this place afterwards a migratory board of home, and tread down. I will never let the fields of hatred, even as close as under the nails, even if the long shadows of his days are deeply engraved in my skin, in a diary that would get lost during a removal. Just a moment. I need to shorten. Yeah. Чи думаєш ти про дощ, виходячи з лісу власного тіла? Як темрява виходить з-під нігтя повного місяця? Чи помічаєш себе, обмотану теплим ганчір'ям зими, серед ландшафту, який тобі не належить? Чи хочеш привласнити це гірке, як горіхова молодість, повітря, легкість якого, наче самотня гойдалка вітру? Чи бачиш між гір спину туману, ідеальному вигин, якого ще не торкався погляд художника? Чи можеш про це розповісти, не розтуливши рота, кожну щілину часу забиваючи криком? Чи робиш ти в цьому крику отвори для глядачів, будуючи з крику дім цю велику ротову порожнину? Чи відчуваєш вогник любові, коли дивишся в дзеркало, з квітки шкіри скидаючи всі присвійні займенники? Чи вмикаєш ти радіо миру, коли рахуєш кроки надії? Чи відчуваєш себе живою у розділових знаках життя? Do you think about rain when you come out of the forest of your body, like the darkness comes out from under the fingernail of the full moon. Do you notice yourself wrapped in the warm rags of winter amidst the landscape that does not belong to you? Do you want to appropriate this air as bitter as your walnut youth, and as light as lonely swing of the wind? Do you see the back of the fog between the mountains, as perfect as curve never yet touched by an artist's gaze? Can you tell about it without opening your mouth, but feeling in every slit in time with screaming? Do you make any peepholes in the screaming, then building your scream house with huge oral cavity? Do you feel a twinkle of love when you look at the mirror, snaking off the possessive pronouns of the flower of your skin? Do you turn on the peace radio while counting steps of hope? Do you feel alive in the punctuation of life? Thank you.
Thank you, Iya Kiva. Now, Vasyl Makhno. He was born in Chortkiv in the Ukrainian province.
No, in Chortkiv.
So Chortkiv. Chortkiv. Here it begins, but I wanted to ask you about the next name in the Ukrainian province, Ternopil. And
Yes.
it was named, I think, to remember that it was called Ternopol sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Russian.
Because there is a book
in the Polish named Tarnopol.
Ternopol.
In the Polish, in Ukrainian Ternopil.
There is a German book, written by Gregor von Retzory about the Hermelin in Ternopol.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't know if Ternopil is Ternopol, and Gregor von Retzory is a German writer from Chernivtsi.
Yeah.
Czernowitz. Yeah. Vasyl Makhno published 14 poetry collections. His most recent collection, One Sail House, was published in 2021. I won't tell you the next titles. You find them in the biography published in the festival homepage. But I want to ask you about another title, Paper Bridge, published in 2017. And
in Ukrainian 2017, in American edition translation 2022.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you, there is also another festival, German-Ukrainian festival, exists since 10 years.
No, I don't know.
With the title Paper Bridge.
Oh, great.
And it's not coming from you.
Absolutely. The Paper Bridge is from Bible.
Yeah,
you know?
it's from the Bible, but you have somebody has to actualize it. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, and he published also a book of short stories and 5 books of essays. And here is the next, next question. I tell you the title, the Gertrude Stein Memorial Cultural and Recreation Park, published in 2006.
Yeah, sure.
And this book isn't translated into Romanian or
No,
is it published?
No, not in Romanian,
English?
but
what about this memorial cultural and recreation?
you know,
park?
that during Soviet time, right? Many parks in Soviet Union was a park named by, I don't know, Gorky, etc., etc., etc. In New York, where I live, we have behind New York Public Library Bryant Park, and that Bryant, it's I don't forget the first name. It's a American poet from I don't know. 18th century, doesn't matter. But the most important, in that park has monument of Gertrude Stein.
Oh, I see.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that monument was created by American sculptor in Paris in 1922. And finally, city bought this monument and put in on middle of the park. In my title, it's create like paper bridge between Ukraine and America. Park by name, the education park by name Gertrude Stein. Okay. When I arriving from to Otopeni airport, and guy who pick up me, look, this is that another local airport. What is the name? I don't know. Must be by Nikita Stanescu.
Nikita
Yes, it's my suggestion. Okay.
Former Nikita Stanescu airport.
Yes. Why not?
Okay. So let's do it. And because it's the first poetry night in this festival, I will tell the audience also which other poets you translated. They were Zbigniew Herbert, Janusz Suber, Bohdan Zadura, Anna Freilich, Gottfried Benn, Vasco Popa, and Raymond Carver's poetry into Ukrainian. Yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please
Okay.
read your poems.
I'm going to start from first poem title in Ukrainian Vina, in English War. It's a poem I wrote exactly February 21st, 2022. And this poem was immediately translated into English, and a couple days later was published in Los Angeles Review of Books. Vina. Oh, okay. In this poem, I has reference for two people, or I don't know, that one of them, Pavlo Tychena, is the best modernist Ukrainian poet who write poems against Russia during short period independence of Ukraine of 1918. And second, it's the tale of Igor's campaign, you know. Господи, як там в Тичини і Білий, і Блок, і Єсенін, як вони нас оточили, з усіх чотирьох обсіли. Дай же нам сили і міці, тривожну валізку і хліб. Брешуть же їхні лисиці, що в нас ні щитів, ні століть. Кудись же веде нас Ігор, за Дон зі своїм полком сьогодні з лютневим снігом і завтра з черленим щитом. А тьма їхня з тьму таракані, а їхня мокша і чуть стріляють по нашому стані, по наших позиціях б'ють. То що там у полку, що там у слові о полку, і що там ще те й жеде? Ви, скачучи босим вовком, гублячи слину вражди, дійшли до річок і кордонів, до серця мого в кулаці. Щорніли ваші ікони, не відбілите і в молоці. Господи, як там втечене про Київ, Месію, про край? Чому ми ці вірші не вчили? Стікай, моє серце, стікай. War, translated by Olena Jennings. Lord, the way Tychena writes, and Belly, and Block, and Yesenin, the way they surrounded us on all four sides, give us strength and power, hastily packed suitcase and bread, Naturally, they sly foxes lie, that we have neither shields nor sanctuaries. Igor leads us somewhere over the dawn with his regiments, today with a February snow, and tomorrow with bloody shield. And their dark forces come from Tmu-Tarakan, at Mokshas and Chud, shot at our location, hit at the position we take. So, what is there the tale of Igor's campaign? And what is there in ancient sound? You, jumping barefoot as a wolf, spreading the spit of the devil, reached the rivers and borders, reached my cleansed heart. Your blackened icons can't even be cleansed with milk. Lord, the way Tatiana writes about Kyiv, the Messiah, about the country, why didn't we learn this poem by heart? Bleed my heart, bleed. Thank you. The next poem title is in Ukrainian Sigit Marmarosky, in Romanian Sigit Maramuresh, Marmației, Sigit Marmației. A couple years ago, I was invited to the some kind of international festival in Sigit Maramuresh, where I look the beautiful city, local people, prison for the political prison, right? It's and huge Ukrainian villages along the Odesa, you know. Mm-hmm. And in the wooden churches, I see Cyrillic scripts. It's some kind of borderland. It's my poem. У Сигіті Мармаровському пахли червиві яблука, і циганки чіплялися за рукави, щоби поворожити, казали, що знають про тебе усе. Від них несло цуйкою, пережованою зранку цибулею і українськими сигаретами, які вони проносять через прикордонний міст кілька разів на день. Ранішні тумани закутували місто аж під шию. Вони сходили з гір, як місцеві селяни, до Сигіту на ринок і залишались на вулицях, і притулялись головами до будинків, наче бездомні пси цього міста. Я стояв на перехресті вулиць, дорожній знак вказував напрям на Бая Маре, десь поблизу відреставрована синагога, православна церква і ратуша, та кілька перевернутих вітром сірникових коробок будинків свідчили про занепад усіх Європ та імперій. І лише залізниця, побудована за Австрії, принаймні кудись вела, шарпаючи вагонами, наче неслухняну дитину за руку, і потяг, в'їжджаючи в гори, навіки зникав, забравши звідси собою євреїв. Бо їм не можна було тут жити. Це значить молитися в синагозі, доїти кіз, продавати червоний перець, їздити до Бая Маре та Угорщини і співати щосуботи своїх сумних пісень. Тут взагалі не можна було жити. Серед дерев'яних церков з кириличними написами, зі святою Варварою, картинами страшного суду, евангелістами, що тримають на поготові вказівний палець, як ключ. А нічний сторож, мабуть, замикаючи церкву на ніч і вхід на цвинтар, лаявся, що ключі та замки поржавіли. А у Сигіті Мармаровському пахли також розчавлені сливи з коричневими очима кісточок, як у мертвої корови, по яких лазили мухи і мурахи. І було зрозуміло, що нічний потяг прибуває до двірця, бо машиніст задовго до зупинки сигналив цим горам, яблукам, сливам і змученим циганам, які пили вино у придорожній корчмі і брудними руками патрали в смажених пстругів і кричали до власника, щоби той приніс білого хліба ще, але швидко. Бо їм потрібно було встигнути доїхати до прикордонного переходу, коли їхні жінки з контрабандними цигаретами повертатимуться домів. Sigitu Marmatei, translated by Orest Popovich. In Sigitu Marmatei, the odor of warm apples and gypsy women grabbing at your sleeves to read your fortune, claiming to know all about you. They reeked of homemade brandy laced with the onion and chewed in the morning and Ukrainian cigarettes. They smuggle across the border bridge several times a day. Morning means would envelop the town up to its neck, descending from the mountains like a local villagers to the market in Sigitu and lingering on the street. They are snuggled up to the buildings with their heads like stray dogs of this town. I stood at the street intersection where the road sign pointed toward Baia Mare, nearby a restored synagogue, an Orthodox church, the city hall, and the few matchbox houses overturned by the wind attested to the downfall of all the Europes and empires. And the only railroad built back in Austrian time at least was heading somewhere, tugging the car like a disobedient child by hand. And the train, and turning the mountains, would vanish in them forever, having taken away the Jews. For it was impossible to them to live here, meaning to pray in their synagogue, to milk their goats and sell red peppers, travel to Baia Mare and Hungary, and sing their mournful songs each Sabbath. It was impossible to live here in general, among the wooden church with a Cyrillic inscription, with a picture of Saint Barbara and the Last Judgment, with the evangelist each holding at the ready his index finger like a key, and the night watchman, probably, while lock up the church and cemetery gate for the night, would grumble that the key and locks were rusty. In Sigitu Marmatei also smelled of squashed plums, in their pits resembling the brown eyes of the dead cow, with flies and ants crawling over them. And it was obvious that the night train was approaching the station, for long before the stop was signaling to these mountains, to apples, to plums, to the tired gypsies, drinking wine in the roadside tavern and gutting fried trout with their dirty hands, and while shouting at the innkeeper to serve more white bread and quickly. For they had to reach the border crossing by the time the women were returning home with bootlegged cigarettes. And I have time, yeah?
Yes, of course.
It's good. Next poem, my father, батько. Знаєш, мій батько, ровесник Джона, який Леннон. Коли Джон співав, він закладав клему і закладав також при кінці тижня, тому що шофер, щось там ламалось, гасли свічки, залиті бензином, бітли літали до Індії, минали зими, і діти квітів ламали стебла і строфи. Знаєш, містечко, кілька авто, ратуша, ринок, бруківка, котра укладала століттям, як вірш в Риму, шиби в будинках тремтіли, немов скрипкова дека. Кінець 50-х, діти війни, зламане покоління, плащі із шевйоту, у гумовцях, що аж по коліна стоїть на автобусній моя мама, студентка. Знаєш, в музичних класах баян, гітара чи домбра, музика вимагає пожертви, немов від донора, оркестра із підучилища в збереженій синагозі, тепер районному клубі, гріється від кірогазу в новенькім газоні, затягуючись раз до разу. Мій батько чекає на маму на розі. Знаєш, за кілька років їх шлюб невдалий розпався, музика раптом змінилась, я підріс і розпасся. Джон, що пошлюбив Йоко, очолить колони гіпі, стане співати про квіти, змінить одяг і стилі, запустить бороду вуса, наче пророк у пустелі, його привабить свобода і ліві. Знаєш, містечко також зміниться, бо військові частини прийдуть в касарні, льотчики та зв'язкові, весняні осінні призови, циклічні, як стан природи, співатимуть пісню Джона про вчора і позавчора, і про нещасне кохання, а поодинці і хором про те, що проходить, знаєш, на розі вулиць, де батько чекав на маму, музика не змінилась. Я чую її ту саму, і чую, як та оркестра збривається з ритму і нути. І Джон, що лежить на асфальті, застрелений у Нью-Йорку, за темних окулярах вже постаріла Йоко, і музику, як розлучення, мені не забути. Знаєш, тому що мій батько, ровесник Леннона Джона, я бачу його молодого, що мчить у кабіні газона, а мама стоїть на вулиці співуючи «Let it be», вона його дівчина, і він поспішає, летить. Ще мить їм лишається, справді ще мить, а музика їхня залишиться тільки тобі. Окей. English translation also by Орест Попович. My father. You know my father, the same age as John Lennon. When John was singing, it was a batteries he clamped on, and on the weekend he would also tie one as a car mechanic. Something would always break. Plug flooded by gas would fail. Beatles would fly to India. Winters were passing by, and the flowers' children were breaking stocks and stanzas. You know, the little town, few cars, city hall, market square, cobblestones set over centuries like verse in rhyme, window panes inbuilt and vibrated like a violin decca, end of the 50s. The children of war, a damaged generation, wearing a Cheviot coat in rubber boots, knee-high, standing at the bus stop was my mother, a student. You know, in the music classes, accordion, guitar, or dombra, music demands a sacrifice from a donor. The school of Ed Orchestra in former synagogue, now converted to the district club, is kept warm by kerosene stove. In his brand new hazon, dragging repeatedly on his cigarette, my father is waiting for my mother on the corner. You know, after a few years, their failed marriage fell apart. The music had suddenly changed. I grew and fatted up. John, who married Yoko, had it thrown of hippies, started singing about flowers, altered his wardrobe and style, grew beard and mustache like a prophet in the wilds, allured by freedom and the leftist. You know, in the little town will also change as military units occupied by barracks, airmen, and corpsmen. The spring and fall draft is like cyclical as nature's season. Will sing John's songs about yesterday and day before, about love singly and in chorus, about all that passed by. You know, in the street corner where my father awaited my mother. The music has no change. It sounds the same to me. And I hear that orchestra off tune and off beat. And John lying on the pavement, shut in New York, in her dark glasses, by now the aged Yoko. And the music like divorce, I simply don't get. You know? because my father was the same age as John Lennon. I see him, a young man, speeding in the cab in his hazon, while my mother stand in the corner waiting, humming, "Let it be." She is his girl, and he is hurrying, flying. They have but a brief moment left. Indeed, only an eye wink. But their music and music of Beatles will remain with me.
Thank you.
That's it?
Oh, no, if you...
And finally, okay, because I know that time is... and poetry, this very specific genre. Okay, for that last poem for this reading. Порада, як краще записувати вірші. Одне твоє око читає кирилицю, а інше латинку. Хтось записує вірші зліва направо. Єгуда Міхай писав справа наліво. Золоті китайські поети понаписували в стовпчики цих кілька чорних зерен цинамону, незайва приправа до кухні світової поезії. Але незалежно від часу, в якому жили, способу писання, абетки, якою користувались, усі любили вино і жінок, пасма гір, смажену рибу, салат з червоного перцю, витрачати гроші і не повертати борги. Усі були ловцями звуків, великими дітлахами, сітками для ловлення риби і метеликів, або кінченими алкоголіками, безнадійними наркоманами, сексуальними збоченцями, нарцисами, одіссеями, орфеями. Одні писали пером, інші різали собі жили і умокали в загуслу від алкоголю і наркотиків кров, циганську голку, хоботок сонної бджоли. Однак незалежно від рідини, яка засихала на папері, чи на манжеті рукава, чи в будь-який спосіб записана, поезія ставала кольором і звуком, послідом, блювотиною, сукровицею. Інколи з якогось іншого простору падає конаюча бджола на підвіконня твого дому, і поки, лежачи на спині, вона розгрібає в'язке осіннє повітря, ти відречешся від усіх порад, як записувати вірші. Бо дивлячись, як лаштуються яхти покидати цю бухту, і як моряки прощаються своїми тимчасовими коханками, і як розпливається мазут униз головою, як мрець по воді, і як тисячі саксофонів знаками запитань переварюють у своїх шлунках зелений послід музики, і як найтоншою струною скрипки пробігає електричний струм, який спопиляє найменший опір фальшивої ноти. Ти знаєш, що йти цією кладкою, яку виклав повний місяць, по парчевому тілі води, небезпечно. І тому будь-яка порада виявиться недоречною. Здається, хтось це уже пробував. Advice on how best to write poetry. One of your eyes reads Cyrillic letters. The other, Latin alphabet. Some write verses from left to right. Yehuda Mihai wrote from right to left. The golden Chinese poets wrote many works in columns. These few black kernels of cinnamon, just the right spice for cookery of world poetry. But regardless in the time in which they lived, or their method of writing, or the alphabet they used, they all loved wine and women, mountain ranges, fried fish, salad of red peppers, wasting money and welching on their debts. They all hunted for sounds, like grown kids with nets for catching fish or butterflies, or like terminal alcoholic, hopeless drug addicts, sexual perverts, heirs of Narcissus, Odessa, Orpheus. Some wrote with a pen, others cut their veins and dipped into the blood thickened by alcohol and drugs, a fat needle, the proboscis of Somerlet B, but regardless of the liquid dyeing on the paper of the calf of a sleeve, the poetry recorded by any method became color and sound, excrement, vomit, and sentence. Now and then, a dying bee may fall onto your windowsill from some other space, and while lying on the back is flying away at the viscous autumn air, you will renounce all advice on how to write poetry. For when you watch how yachts prepare to leave this bay, how sailors say goodbye to their temporary lovers, and how tar disappears head down like a corpse in water, and how thousands of saxophones, like a question marks, diggest in their stomach in green dropping of music, and how the electric current passing through the thinnest string of a violin, you reduce that to ashes and slightest resistance of the false note. You know that is dangerous to tread this footbridge, laid out by full moon, on the broken body of water. Therefore, any kind of advice will prove to be useless. Seems to me someone has tried this before. Дякую. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's discuss a little bit. I wanted to ask you one question, or a question in two parts. How did this war change your civil life as civil persons? And how did this war change your life as writers and poets?
This for me or
Unexpectedly
for all of us?
All of us, all of you.
Okay. Women first.
Why? I will not polite, but I hear this question from interview to interview. How did change your poetry? If my life, I lived about 30 years in Donetsk. I was born here. I went to the school, to the university, blah, blah, blah. And after 2014, I become so-called displaced person in international terminology. And I don't know. I lost a lot of my friends. First of all, with different political position. I don't know, life's position. Then lost of people who was killed, like civilians, like soldiers, people who then from Donetsk and after 2022 went forced to move from Ukraine somewhere, and many people who was like my so-called friends in Donetsk live I don't know, Lithuania, different countries, and in such circumstances, we all are under this pressure of stress all time, and it's very difficult to find energy to meet each other, to have a usual conversation. Even in Lviv, where I live now, sometimes people ask me, you live with, you and as a poet live, why do you meet? I answer no, we haven't energy. Because, and very often, a lot of connections were destroyed in nature. It's difficult to find words for it, even with alive people. And because people have no challenge, no circumstances, different problems, and I lived about 8 years in Kiev, and now I live in Lviv. But I not agree with with meaning that I am double refugee. I wanted to go to Lviv before full invasion. It's a very long story about all this. I don't know. I lost the feeling of home. It's for me. I need to answer by hand for questions, all the questions about home these days. And I understand that for me, home is not a closed space where I live. Yeah. For me, home is something like not my own space, but Ukrainian language. I don't know, some things in some cities that are not destroyed. And in writing, I don't know, it's a little bit strange, but all we know, if we studied the Second World War, the First World War, that war is not only bad things. All waves of feminism are connected with wars, for example. And war brings very strange and very deep of freedom in writing, because you want to cry. You like a wounded dog, no, animal. And when you want to cry, you don't think about if it's not banal, if it's banal, I don't know, blah blah blah. You gather in your how this will be fist all your hydrate, all your these feelings, and do this in poetry, and it's like freedom, but it's not. But it's like freedom in this energy, but in your reality, we struggle. No, not I, but soldiers and all society, like a common ecosystem, we struggle for this freedom. That's all.
Thank you.
It's a very interesting question, because I'm living in New York City, so far from Ukraine, yes. And I lived in Ukraine in 2000, mostly 24 years ago. Yes, wars change my life, because I wrote my new novel, and right now I put on the best time that process, and I wrote poem about war, probably 20 poems, and in Polish foundation founded by Krzysztof Czyżewski, he created a new series of poetry, of Ukrainian poetry about war. The last, the series that Krzysztof told me that in early 19th, he printed that another series, the Bosnian poetry, because that main idea of Czyżewski is that poetry also struggle with the war, and poetry that has immediately reaction on that event, war. But my mother lives in Ukraine. My brother lives in Ukraine. One of my brothers was soldiers in Bakhmut. He was wounded in the right hand. And if you're asking me about what changed, I think in that war changed not only Ukraine, not only Ukrainian people. It's a worldwide situation. Also, Romania, Europe, United States. We live in the terrible time. It's a terrible time from everybody. At that time, ask, okay, what can I do? You must write, you must help, you will be volunteers, or etc. Or how to support Ukraine. And yes, that's for me, I don't know, but I think about Ukrainians like a bravely people and bravely soldiers. And yes, war continued 2 years, but we have very strong enemies. It's Russian. It's one of the biggest country on the planet, right? Yeah. It has nuclear weapon, and etc., etc. And Ukraine, look on the map, it's just smaller, right? Yeah. And for Ukrainian people, needs and poetry, needs conversation about that war, and needs weapon, and needs help. And if after our reading, our conversation, somebody thinking about Ukraine tomorrow, I will be happy because it's very important and helping to people inside Ukraine.
Thank you.
I agree that this war has changed the world, and I think actually one of the things that happened is that one of the centers of the world has moved from the west eastwards. Mm-hmm. It's from the east of Europe that we now get this kind of moral stance. Zelensky has become one of the most influential and inspiring leaders across the world. He'll probably be studied in communication, political communication textbooks for the next decades. It's a similar moment, I guess, to 1989 when there were leaders, political leaders that were inspiring in our region rather than in the West. Now Macron is kind of imitating Zelensky. It's not the other way around. So given this, I also moved eastwards. I moved from London to Kishinau. This is probably the biggest change in my life. And I can't say at all that this was a sacrifice. This was seizing an opportunity that this war has created. The fact that there is attention, that there is the spotlight on our region means that there is more opportunity to tell our stories, and I wanted to contribute to telling these stories as a journalist. My novel that I published is about 2 Russian revolutionaries who were part of Lenin's government. So the novel I wrote is about their youth when they were still fighting against an authoritarian Tsarist regime, much like the one that Russia has now in Putin's time. And the sequel that I started working on is about these women in power and the kind of compromises they needed to make and so on. And it's an analysis of power. And I frankly, I paused that project because I feel uncomfortable with dedicating my time now to Russia. And the project I'm working on instead is to do with Moldovan history and a kind of a multicultural recent history of Moldova in the 20th century in an anti-Russian imperialist way. Multiculturalism has normally been this agenda, this kind of discourse that the Soviet Union promoted in Moldova. It always came with a Russian imperialist agenda. What I'm trying to do is to push back against that agenda, but still present local history in Moldova through all of the kind of multi-ethnic voices that have shaped our recent history. I'm going to repeat myself from what I said something earlier, but only you two were there. So Tatiana Tsubulak, probably the best-known contemporary Romanian writer from Moldova, or Moldovan writer, and one of the most translated novelists, said that last year she was talking about her grandma who got deported to Siberia and how she felt a responsibility to tell her grandma's story. And she said, no one is going to write our stories, our books instead of us. We have to do that. So this is what I'm trying to do now.
Thank you. So,
Thank you.
thank you, Paula Erizanu, Iya Kiva, and Vasyl Makhno, and
Thank you, Ernest.
audience, and have a good evening and night. And see you tomorrow at the same place, and the day after tomorrow till
Do you need
Sunday evening.
Can I have that? I need to write an article about today.
Yeah.
So if you're happy to give me your poetry.